Good morning, everybody, on this Denmark and Marsh episode, the last show of 2024. It's pretty wild to think about, Graham. We started doing this not on this Gator platform, but we started doing this back in February right after the Super Bowl, and it's been almost a year, um, which is pretty wild to think about. There's so much, like I was talking with Hack last night. We're talking about, the football season pretty much coming to an end, and we're like mid-July, early August. Like that was so far ago, but then again, just felt like yesterday. Um, when you think about, Florida was playing Miami August 31st. We sit here December 31st, and it feels like forever ago. But then there's times where it's like, I remember exactly how that day was, and it felt like it was just 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it just kind of shows you how time flies, man.
Time flies when you're watching ball, dude. I mean, we were like,
Yeah, all right, let's get to it.
wait, no, hold on,
Go
wait.
ahead.
I want to say, like, you're probably the same way as I am, and people listening to the show are probably similar to how we are. Like, are you the type of person that, like, every, like, big sporting event, like when something big happened in a game, like, you remember where you were watching that game at that moment?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
that way
that's
with
how you
like every big Gator game I've ever watched, every big Jaguar game, like, and even like non-Gator Jaguar games, like just like big moments that I saw live, like I remember where I was when I watched like the Iron Bowl forever ago and like stuff like that, like the kick six in the Iron Bowl. I'm saying, um, like so like sport we're weird as sports people, man.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are like that. Like our P1, the P1s, the ones that are the hardcore that listen to the radio station or it's a certain particular sport or whatever. I feel like most of them are like that.
Yeah, 100%.
But we'll see, man. We're going into 2025. No big splash in the transfer portal. The Texas receiver that was expected to commit ends up going to Washington. Jonte Cook. And really, the only big news that came out of the last week or so since last time we spoke was Shemar James going into the draft. So Florida loses their top three tacklers from 2024, which really, you say that seems like a big deal, but it doesn't really seem like a big deal when you have Pup Howard and Miles Graham, how they played down the stretch. Overall, now that the transfer portal window is closed, that doesn't mean guys still can't come in. That just means that guys can't enter the portal. The portal window closed December 28th, which was last Saturday. They
There's
can't
a lot of
go.
there's a lot of guys still undecided. So
Yeah, a lot of guys are still undecided. I mean, there's still 6,000 people in the portal. And the portal window will not open again until after spring ball, which is about April. But I mean, looking at the team right now, looking forward to next year, I'm pretty content with where the team is stacked up. I'm sure Jonte Cook didn't commit to Florida because of how crowded the receiver room is. I'm sure when you go to Washington, he'll be the number one guy there. So, all in all, I was expecting a big splash, and I was not happy that first week when it didn't seem like things were trending in the right direction. But as it stacks up now, I'm pretty content where the team's at.
yeah, because of timeline wise, Dallas Wilson was almost like a portal get in a way because it was during the transfer portal window time because obviously it was after signing day that they kind of flipped him back to the Gators. So yeah, if you had told me that when the portal window opened that they were going to get another receiver, they were going to get the punter, and a couple other guys, and then get a huge blue chip receiver commit to flip and get out of his letter of intent to Oregon. I agree with you. I'm content. I'm not over the moon, but I'm content. I think it was always true that the majority of the nucleus of this team and the majority of the players that were going to be really doing something next year were guys that were already on the team. Um, I still believe, Dylan, and we talked about it last episode after the bowl game. I still believe that defensive line room leaves some big bodies to be desired. I still believe the edges. I'm cool. I'm not really tripping about the edges. I don't really care about Jack Pyburn transferring and all that. They got dudes there, man. You have to imagine Tyreek Sapp coming back. George Gums, and all the young talent that's coming in as well. I'm cool with that. The interior defensive line is where they need help, in my opinion. You're losing Cam Jackson, and you're losing Desmond Watson, who Desmond Watson plays more than I think a lot of people realize. So, like, but everyone's kind of talking about Cam Jackson. I talked about this last episode. I still don't understand. I still don't know if people understand how much they're going to be missing in Desmond Watson, especially in short yardage. So they still need at least one more big body on the defensive line, in my opinion. Dylan appears to be frozen. I don't know if I'm frozen on his end.
All right. I believe we're still here. All right.
Yeah,
I think we're good here. Yeah. I just
Did you hear
what
was the last thing you heard me say?
You finished your thought about the defensive line. Yeah, I agree with you. The defensive line, you have to address the interior. And there's still time to, you can still get guys at JUCO. You can still get guys from the transfer portal. The high school window is obviously done. You're not going to get anybody that's going to, I think, address that need in the February signing day. But there's still plenty of time. And then also you have spring ball. You're going to have plenty of guys that are unhappy, and you're going to have guys that are talented there as well. So we'll see, how the dice rolls in the next couple of months. Probably not going to get a full answer for spring ball, obviously, until after April, and that transfer portal window opens. But yeah, the defensive line, you look at LSU, they've probably been the most busiest team since the portal window opened. They've probably spent the most money of anybody, I'd probably assume. And they look like they're ready to win right now. Miami, you watch that bowl game, and it's like, all right, if they're rolling with that quarterback and they're losing all that talent, like, I feel like we're in pretty good shape to beat them. Kind of a couple weeks ago, I felt like 50-50, probably more 60-40 to win that game. But, kind of like we saw this year, you have the same schedule. Obviously, it's in a different order, but you got to be able to you have that depth on the defensive line, because you can't roll with 5-6 guys. You got to be able to have 7, 8, 9, and be able to rotate. And you're going to have injuries. You're going to have injuries, and it's all about what your depth's going to be like at the defensive line position.
And you can't roll with not having enough guys whose weight starts with a 3. Right now, all their best D linemen their weight starts with a 2. I need some 300-pounders, bro. Again, Cam Jackson, Desmond Watson. I need dudes in that role. I got Caleb Banks as my interior pass rusher, and he's going to be arguably my best defensive lineman. I'm cool there, but I need somebody next to him, and I need somebody to come in for them as a rotational piece. That is, they don't got to be a fully a completely polished product right now. That's not what I'm saying. And I'm not asking for Aaron Donald here. I'm asking for 2 large human beings. I'm asking for 2 dudes that are 320 plus, that are wide people, and they've got the ass and they've got the legs to sit there and not allow guards and centers to push them around. And first and second down needs to be hell to pay for other teams trying to run the football. And right now, I don't know if that's the case. I think this defense, clearly the young guys showed a lot last year. Clearly they started to come on. But again, it cannot be understated how much their ability to stop and slow down running games really helped them start to play well back half of the year on defense. And a lot of that's because of that interior defensive line. Caleb Banks, one of those pieces, but there were 2 others. So I'm just worried about that, Dylan, because I like what they got at DB. I like what they got at linebacker. That said, if they go down to Coral Gables, or if they go to Baton Rouge, and those teams' running backs they're getting past that initial wave on the line of scrimmage, and they're getting 4 or 5 yards of carry, then all of a sudden the linebackers are probably going to start to struggle a bit. The safeties are probably going to start to struggle a bit. The corners are going to struggle a bit. You know how this works. I'm not explaining to you something you don't know. But I'm just that's my one fear about this team right now. That's my one big concern. Other than that, I'm pretty optimistic going into this year. I feel like this is a roster now that can go win, 9 games at least. I feel like it's that type of roster now. That's the one spot they still got to fix. Other than that, though, Dylan, like, do you agree with me? Like, this is a 9-win roster, man.
Yeah, at minimum.
Even with the schedule they're playing.
Yeah. I mean, you couldn't have had a worse start. You won 7 games last year.
Yeah.
And now you enter next year with what we all assume to be a Heisman hopeful, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He's got how many starts has he got? Like 5 starts, and he played in almost every game. Yeah, and you expect, and here's the thing too, man. Like, you can go back the last couple of years. We expect everybody that's coming back to take another step and be better, and that's always not the case. You can go back to a couple of years with CeCe Jefferson when he came back for a senior. You expected him to explode that senior year, and it never happened. Not to point one out, but I remember very well because he's from Baker County. I expected him to explode and be a day 2, early day 3 draft pick, and it never panned out that way.
There will be guys that we're talking about right now that we expect to explode that never do, and there will be guys we're not really talking about right now that at the end of the year will be like, oh my God, that dude's a player. Aaron Gates. No one was talking about Aaron Gates last season going into the year, and now he's one of the best defensive players they've got.
Yeah. Yeah, and a couple of those guys, Gates being one of them, have got some surgeries done. I forget who the list was exactly. Not that it matters. I mean, a lot of it was, procedural, clean up some stuff with their knee and stuff like that. So hopefully they get that cleaned up and they're ready to go come spring ball. Spring games usually mid-April, April 15th, April 14th, whatever that Saturday is. So we'll see how that goes. Graham, basketball, last thing before we roll out of here. Saturday, I looked at the spread. Can you tell me what the spread was for the Florida Kentucky game on Saturday?
It's at Rupp. Kentucky minus 2.5.
6.
Kentucky minus 6.
Yeah, I was surprised by that number too. That's
interesting.
That's a big number. Feels like.
That's interesting because I think Florida's better than Kentucky. I know it's in Rupp, but keep in mind Florida last year was not as good as they are this year, and they beat Kentucky at Rupp last year.
Yeah. Here's the thing: 11 a.m. tip. Does that help or hurt Florida, or does it even matter?
I don't think it matters as much in hoops.
Yeah, football's definitely different, but
yeah, because the crowd will be the crowd's going to be the same. They're playing Florida. They hate Florida. It's going to be a sold out crowd, hostile environment, which honestly I think is good for both teams because it just provides juice to the game. It's not like a football noon game where it's like kind of dead and like there's not as much energy. It's not the same thing. So I don't think it really matters. I think it's all good. I think this game could be at 7 or it could be at 11. I don't know if it really changes much in terms of what the final score will end up being. But I like the Gators to win.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm gonna watch the game, Graham. I promise you, I'll watch the game. I might hit the DVR and miss the first couple minutes, but because it's Saturday,
you've got to have takes after the game.
I gotta have takes.
Yes, you got to have opinions. You got to tell me what you think about Walter Clayton Jr. and Will Richard and Alex Condon.
I was about to say those are the 2 guys I know. And Condon. No,
Isaiah Brown windmill the other day against Stetson. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw he had 3.
My boy said
he had 3 insane dunks. I didn't see anything from the game Sunday, but I did see the highlights of Stetson. That's the thing with basketball, man. It's like you get through, you might have like one big game in, the first 2 months, and then it's like January, like you're hitting the road running now. You're playing nothing but conference games from here on out, and it's a tough schedule, and you're going to know what you have early because you got Kentucky Saturday, you got, Tennessee next Tuesday, I think it is?
Yeah, in Gainesville.
At home?
Yep, I'll be at the game. But that's especially true for the SEC this year because Florida played, on paper, Florida played a decent out-of-conference. People keep saying they haven't played anybody. On paper, they played a decent out-of-conference schedule. I mean, they played 4 ACC teams. It's not Florida's fault that the ACC sucks. I mean, they're all bad. Carolina's not what they normally are. Virginia's not what they normally are. But, like, if you were to look at a basketball schedule and say, I got Carolina and Virginia before the new year, you'd be like, oh, damn. Like, that's get your popcorn ready. That's marquee matchups. But they both stink. That's not Florida.
What was it?
Florida shows up and kicks
Was it
out.
Charles Barkley that said?
What's up?
Was it Charles Barkley that said he goes, it's not my fault that everybody else sucks when you make a schedule? I think. So
Matt was asking us if isn't Shemar James declaring for the draft old news? Well, yeah, but when he does it right before Christmas, Matthew, and we haven't done a show, we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, it was like 4 or 5 days ago. I think he did it right after our pod dropped the last time.
But yeah, like, here's the thing, man. I feel like we already know a lot about Florida. I feel like they showed us a lot, because listen, once you make your schedule, there's the same in football and the same for any sport. You can't control who you play. You can't control how good they are when you play them, right? What you can control is if you do end up with a softer schedule because some of the teams you thought you would be good are not as good, you can control kicking their ass. And that's what Florida played like 2 close games. Everybody else, they beat the hell out of them. Yeah. So, like, you can say Florida hasn't had a hard schedule, but they've beaten the living you-know-what out of all these teams. So, like, I think Florida's really good. To me, those 2 first games in the SEC is going to show us everything about this team and how legit they are between Kentucky and Tennessee. I think, if I had to guess, they're probably going to end up splitting those 2 games. And if they do, I'm cool with that, man. You split those 2 games, and then you got a tough SEC because the entire SEC is good this year. The SEC is by far the best conference in basketball. It's not even close. So you're going to have tough games the entire season. But Kentucky and Tennessee, per usual, are 2 of the best teams in the conference, and the 2 best teams might be the 2 Alabama teams. Man, you're off and running. You get through that conference schedule winning, 75, 80% of your games, which I think they're more than capable of doing. And then you make a nice run in the SEC tournament. You're going to be talking about this team as a 2 or 3 seed in March Madness. You're going to be talking about this team as one of the marquee teams in whatever corner of the bracket they end up being in.
Yeah, when you look at the one thing that, we saw from the Florida basketball team 10 years ago, they were a really good team, but they were hot in early, mid-January, and then they weren't really hitting their stride once you got to March Madness. It feels like once you have a good team and everybody knows that Florida's a good team, it's like, okay, it's good to win these kind of games, but you want to be hitting your stride once you get into March and once you get into the tournament, because it's, what's it all for if you're hitting your stride now and then once you get to tournament time, you're not hitting on all cylinders. And that's kind of what college basketball is. It's become, I know for guys like you that watch every basket for the Gators, but for most people, it's a 3-week sport. And they just turn it on in March, and then, for Gator Nation, they, flip out when things don't go their way. They get bounced in the first round, or, it's a great season if they make it to the Elite Eight. So that'd be the one thing that I'd say, with this team, with the expectations they have.
Yeah, we talked about this, I think it was maybe last episode or last time we got into hoops a little bit. What I love about this team is, and it kind of gets to the whole like hitting your stride, playing your best ball point that you were just making. This team can win when they don't shoot well, which is like huge, because I would say, it seems like they have been because they're undefeated. I would say this team hasn't hit their stride at all because they haven't shot the ball super well in most of their games. They've kind of, and between Elijah Martin, Will Richard, and Walter Clayton, that's three dudes that are capable of shooting the basketball that have honestly been off for a lot of the season so far, but they're so good at everything else that they still win. Now, if they were to have played elite teams in some of those games they weren't shooting well, would they have won? Probably not. But they get rebounds and they get to the they get to the free throw line, so they can win those ugly games when the ball's not falling from behind the 3-point line. So that tells me they can beat basically anybody on any given night because of that, because they can beat you in any kind of style that they need to, depending on how they're shooting the ball. And then when they are shooting well, I don't know if anyone can beat them when they're shooting well. And you could say that, to be fair, you could say that about probably 4 or 5 teams in the country. You could say that about Auburn. You could say that about Duke. You could say that about a couple other teams, but you say that about Alabama. But I think when Walter Clayton is hot and he's hitting shots from behind the 3-point line, and then he kicks it out to Will Richard in that corner and he's making shots, and then Elijah Martin is hitting his step back and he's making shots, and they're doing all the other stuff, this team could literally win the national championship when that kind of thing is going on. I really believe that. I'm not saying they're going to. I'm just saying like it's not crazy to say that can be their ceiling.
Yeah, they got the ingredients to win at a high level, and we'll see. Conference play starts this weekend, and we will be talking mostly basketball from here on out. So obviously, dabble in some football as well. All right, Graham, have a happy New Year.
Last thing, and it's important. Doug says, I think they're the best team in the SEC in transition. Doug is absolutely right. That's something I didn't mention. One of the best things they do, this team, other team misses the ball, they get in the glass, they are pushing that thing up, man. They don't give anybody a chance to breathe at all. It's the equivalent of a no-huddle, up-tempo offense in college football. They do not let the defense breathe, and it suffocates teams. And I love watching it.
Yeah. All right. I got to bounce. It's New Year's Eve, and I have no idea what I'm doing tonight. I'll probably just watch the playoff game, and I'll just be chilling, man.
Yeah.
But that's just me. I hope everybody's safe. Don't drink and drive, as always. Uber and Lyft is not that expensive. And we'll see y'all, I guess, next week, man. So until then, peace.